surprised, even if the Prime Minister was in the country, and he isn't, of course, you just saw there, he's overseas, he would not be the focus of the nation's attention in the Parliament this week. Instead, it's the coalition that's the focus, not because they've got any big new policy that they're unveiling or because they're taking up the fight to a bad government. Quite the opposite, in fact. The coalition's in the headlines because of the decisions it has not taken, the policy choices it has not made, and its seeming inability to toughen up to the job of opposition. This week, before the House of Representatives, is Labor's legislation to radically remake the Federal Environment Protection Act. And while the MPs will debate what's in and what's out and how we get environmental laws to coexist with the development we must have to maintain a productive economy, the coalition's going through convulsions trying to work out who they are and what they stand for. As a result, while many commentators will attack the coalition for being divided on energy and on emissions policy, as I just said, this is the fight it's got to have. This is the debate that our country needs, and the only way it can be resolved in the national interest is if the coalition has these internal debates and then comes to a new position. Now, get it right, and the coalition can fight its way back into the political game. Get it wrong, and they consign themselves to irrelevance, and not just for this term, under this leader, but quite possibly for a lot longer than that. Let's remember that whenever the coalition's had a clear and distinct policy on energy and emissions, 2010, 2013 and 2019, it's done well electorally. And every time it's Me Too Labor by supporting net zero in 2022 and 2025, it's lost and lost badly. Today, Barnaby Joyce said that he'd continue to sit with the National Party in the Parliament, but he would absent himself from the party room at least until the Nationals had resolved to dump net zero in every form. Here he is.
No, I don't need to be part of a discussion. In fact, it's probably better that I'm not there, and that is so that the room can have the confidence of what they say stays in the room.
So if they come to a position where they're not backing net zero at all, will you rejoin the party room?
Come and talk to me then, Laura.
So in the meantime, what are you? Are you still a Nat?
I'm Barnaby Joyce, and I'm very proud of it. And
Yes, you are.
Every time I look at my name tag, and look, Laura, I'm a parliamentarian that's had the incredible blessing of representing the people of New England. Okay. And I'll continue to do what is best for the people of New England, and I believe the people of Australia.
Now, rightly, Joyce said that net zero is wrecking the economy and destroying rural Australia. Already on the books are plans to roll out wind turbines and solar panels across land that's close to twice the size of Tasmania, that will desecrate some of our best farmland and national parks, hurt regional communities, and send many of our farmers to the wall. And Joyce is right to be trying to drive the coalition to dump net zero and not just jump ship to one nation. Because why should we be denying ourselves the use of Australia's abundant coal and gas reserves to give ourselves reliable and affordable electricity? And why should we be imposing massive costs on ourselves when nothing we do here in Australia will make the slightest difference to global emissions, given China, India and Trump's America are all putting their prosperity ahead of emissions reduction? This issue is coming to a head inside the coalition, with a joint party room session on net zero scheduled for Friday. Now, unfortunately, for reasons I can't fathom, it's reported that Liberal Leader Sussan Ley won't be in the room to listen to the net zero debate. Now, that's a mistake, because the most important job of the opposition leader is to get the party out of opposition. And you can only do that if you spend time getting the policies right. And that can't happen unless you're in the room and willing to listen. Here's hoping that between now and Friday, Ley changes her mind or someone changes it for her. Before then, as I flagged, there's the environmental approvals legislation that will feature in the House this week. The coalition has asked the government to split the bill into two parts. One, the approvals process, and the other part, the actual environmental standards to be applied. And it's promised it will pass the approvals part swiftly, which will create a new so-called independent environmental regulator. But with environmental regulations taking far, far too long and then being subject to endless green lawfare, frankly, I'm pretty sceptical about any new independent regulator from Labor. In 2020, a review of the EPBC Act found that complex major projects were taking 3 years to get federal approval. Many take much, much longer than that. Think about the North West Shelf gas extension, that's already taken 6 years. Or the Adani mine, well, that took close to a decade. Any new independent regulator is almost bound to be captured by the green lobby and require endless processes in order to defeat legal challenges, because they will come anyway. This is because Howard-era legislation gave every Green group in the country legal standing to bring actions in court. In 2015, the Abbott government tried to repeal those Howard-era provisions, but it was knocked back in the Senate. The Greens, for their part, well, they're against the changes to what it calls business approval laws, and they want a climate trigger included in the legislation that all projects will have to pass. Now, this will all but guarantee there'll be no new coal mines or gas fields ever approved again in Australia. Business, well, they're urging the coalition to support the government's legislation on the grounds that otherwise, they say, it'll be terrible. The government will do a deal with the Greens and the legislation will be even worse.
Do you want Sussan Ley to remove her demand to split the bill?
As I say, for us, we favour having everything on the table at the same time, and we think that that approach assures us the best basis for getting the right balanced outcome.
But why should the coalition back a bill that, on balance, is likely to make economic development even harder? What's needed here is a straightforward, time-limited process for project approval, with ultimate decision-making in the hands of elected and accountable ministers, not faceless bureaucrats. And while at it, I'd limit the appeals process so that activists can't use the courts to delay projects almost indefinitely until eventually the company takes its project and the money and the jobs offshore somewhere else. And just on business, it's time they grew a spine on net zero. Most businesses hate the financial impost of all these climate costs, but they're too scared to say so publicly. Worse still, outfits like the BCA, well, they say they're opposed to the coalition dropping net zero on the grounds they say the business needs certainty. OK, well, what's better? Certainty around intrusive, expensive rules that amount to a global, futile green gesture, or the hope of a more rational system that maximises Australia's comparative advantage? Now, I've been critical of the coalition for following rather than leading here. But if there's one group that's been a total surrender monkey to the Green left, it's been big business. On the recent voice referendum, rolled over. On ever higher immigration, they're silent. Most of all, on climate policy. Businesses like turkeys voting for Christmas, supporting a net zero policy that will ultimately close down much of our primary industry and nearly all of Australia's manufacturing. And for what? Not a scintilla of change in global emissions. It was Lenin who's thought to have said that the capitalists will sell us the rope by which we will hang them. There's a term for people like this, isn't it? Useful idiots. Well, let's hope the coalition politicians this week don't join them.